might be the lord of the kaiju rising. Throw it right back when I fight you, lightning. Breaking all the plans when I'm fusing with the lads. Yeah, mega kaiju breaking right through. It's frightening. North Japan, I'm the bomb. How these kiddies crying to their moms. Alien, heading straight to Fuji when I roll up. Scary and eating every human fruit roll up. Only 4 from the 3 you ain't messing with.
So, Destroy All Monsters, a 1968 film. It's a 6.7 in IMDb, approximately 1 hour and 27 minutes. It was originally supposed to be the last film of Godzilla. Now, I watched this tonight. This is kind of a surprise to everybody. I didn't let anybody know I was watching this. And it was a last-minute thing. It was on Svengoolie. And Svengoolie is very fun to watch, and I decided to take the opportunity to enjoy it and watch it, not only for Kaiju Theater, but for my sci-fi film. So basically, let's get right into it here, as all of the monsters have been basically isolated on Monster Island. They are giving a nice food source there, and they are not allowed to really leave. There's magnetic fields that block them. Depending on which monster and how they try to get out, there's certain ways and certain gases and things that block them. So they are sustained at this point, all the monsters that are on Monster Island. And all is well right now, basically. So everything seems to be going okay. They're in a controlled environment. This group, this like government, military / scientific group, has them at bay at the current moment. And everything seems to be going fine. But then, all of a sudden, things eventually take a turn for the worse. And we'll get to that eventually. But some notable monsters that are on the island at this time are Godzilla, Manila, which is Godzilla, the son of Godzilla. We have also Mothra. We have... You see here Angurius, which comes from the Godzilla Raids Again film, who's actually very, very effective in this film. Also, a couple introductions for me in this film, as I finally got to see Rodan, and a little bit of a different, older style film. So Rodan was in this as well, which was extremely cool for me. And of course, I've seen Rodan in some of the newer films, but it was nice to see him back in the 68, the late 60s films. So basically things take a turn for the worse, and people don't know why. All of a sudden, all the monsters are released. So this scientific group is trying to figure out, why are these monsters all of a sudden turning on the cities? Like Godzilla is destroying New York, and Mothra is destroying towns, and we have Manda, which is like a giant snake that was introduced to in this film. It's destroying bridges and destroying cities, and Rodan is destroying cities. It's just crazy, as all hell is breaking loose here. So the council has to figure out what's going on, and they get a visit that's being paid to them by this group called the Keelak Group. And this strange woman appears, and she looks like she's wearing a disco ball on top of her head. And she's letting them know, hey, don't go any further. Don't try to look into what's going on. This is a controlled environment. Just let the monsters do their thing. Let them destroy the cities, as we have a plan intact. So after all this, the council and the government basically has to come up with a way to stop this, as they're not falling for this group, the Keelak. They know that they're bad news, but they've also got to stop the monsters. Figure out a way to basically defuse the plans from the Keelak all at the same time. So this group of military, they kind of look like the Minions, but it's pretty cool. I like these outfits from 68. Have to go and find the Keelak's cave and discover them to see if they can find out what's going on. Meanwhile, hell's still being done throughout the cities. The military is trying to fight off Godzilla and all these other monsters. While, this other group is trying to figure out where the Keelak caves are to try to figure out what's happening. And also, they've gotten word that there are these eggs. Inside of these eggs, there is transmitters that have been controlling the monsters and turning them against people and turning them against the cities. And they've let loose all of these monsters. And the monsters have been let loose by the Keylak group. Now, who are the Keylak group? So basically, the group of militants go into the cave and they find the Keylak group, the inhabitants where they're located at. But before that, they had a funny little run-in with Godzilla, which was entertaining. They wanted no part of Godzilla in this scene. I thought it was hysterical. Godzilla just gave them the look and they just kept moving on. So as they're going through the cave, finally they stumble upon the Keylak group, which is a group of female aliens. And they're saying, stop what you're doing, stop in your tracks. We already have, the alien monsters are going to come destroy all the monsters that have been changed around. We're trying to take over for a particular purpose. The world doesn't belong to the humans, it belongs to us. And they want to take over and use the monsters as a defense mechanism. So now they have to figure out a way to get rid of these Keylak. So the militants decide to basically blow them up, disintegrate them into a small rock, which ends up happening, but they're not dead, but they're still alive. They just can't do a whole lot of damage. Meanwhile, they've still sent signal to a couple alien monsters that are out there in the world, and so now the monsters go back to Monster Island near the Fuji Islands, and they have to fight. And all of the monsters are ready to go, as now the monsters are looking for the remaining Keylaks. They're ready to have this big battle and destroy all the Keylaks, destroy that island. When some other monster, a monster arrives. A huge monster arrives. That's right, folks. You know who I'm talking about. King Ghidorah. So now they've got to fight King Ghidorah in this epic battle, and all of the monsters are fighting King Ghidorah, which is a fantastic fight all around. And finally, they subdue King Ghidorah, but there's still a dragonfire that's loose up in the sky that is threatening to destroy the monsters, which ends up just being a UFO. So now the militants are required to destroy the UFO in order to save the world and the monsters, cultivating to this awesome ending. And I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed this film. All of the monsters were a blast to see. I got introduced to monsters I never thought I would see, like Kumanga, the giant spider, Manila, which is the baby Godzilla, and Gearlia, which was the turtle-looking guy with the spikes, and the giant snake that attacks the bridge. And what's even crazier is that King Kong, they weren't able to fit him into the budget, but King Kong was usually supposed to be in this as well. But they were able to get King Kong. Overall, I loved this movie. I loved the charm. I loved the characters being back in the late 60s. I loved all the little costumes they had. I loved just the classic feel of the film. Savant Goli really brought the facts to the film, things that I didn't know. It was cool to see the son of Godzilla. He's a little silly, but he was cool to see. Overall, I give this movie a 4.5 Boglins on the Boglin scale. I loved Destroy All Monsters 1968. This is your review from Hobbs 4. Catch up with you later. Peace.
Running at the spike is on my break your motherfucker, give no fuck no more. 100 on the ground, I might just bring the force. Yeah, on it'll bash you. Bitch, of course, I got no time. Commit the crime, commit the line, suffer the crime.